Unifi Protect is a really great option for adding security cameras to your home or small business. And depending on your network setup, whether or not you have Ubiquiti network equipment or not, you may even be able to add a camera system without buying a ton of extra equipment to put on top of your network. So today I just wanted to cover the basics of Unifi Protect and just go over some of the things that you need to be thinking about when putting a system like this together so you guys can secure your home. Let's go ahead and get started. Hey guys, Tim Tritch here with Ethernet Blueprint. Thank you for stopping by. So we're going to shift gears here just a little bit and talk about security cameras. So Ubiquiti offers a camera system that they call Unifi Protect. It's what I personally use in my home, have for several years, and I think it's a really great option for any of you looking to add a camera system to your home or small business, whether you use Ubiquiti for your network or not. However, before you get into putting this together, there are some things you're going to need to know about to make it happen. Okay, first and foremost, you're going to need a device that can run the Unifi Protect application and store your recordings. Number two, you're going to need some Unifi cameras. Okay. Number three, you're going to need a POE switch of some kind to power those cameras and also bring them online. And number four, we're going to be talking about data retention. You're going to need to put some thought into how far back you want to be able to go look in your recordings and things of that nature. So we're going to go into each of these topics in a little bit more detail in today's video. And at the end, I'm going to share with you what I would recommend buying if I was putting together a system today. All right, let's go. All right, guys, so we're going to just take a quick dive into the Unifi NVR. So your NVR is where you're going to store your recordings. It's also going to be the device that you interface with your cameras. It's going to be running Unifi Protect. It'll be how you set up your motion zones and alerting, and all that stuff is all done in your NVR. Now, Ubiquiti gives you a lot of really nice options for an NVR. There's standalone systems that you can just plug into any network and stand up a camera system. And then there's systems that are really designed to be incorporated into your Unifi network by making your router also your NVR, which I think is a great option, and that's what I personally do at my house today. So depending on what your situation is may really drive which NVR is going to be best for you. Okay, so to kind of keep things simple and straightforward here, I put all of the options that Ubiquiti makes for an NVR system on a single page so we could talk through them. I listed the prices there so you can see what that looks like. The first thing you may notice is that there are sort of two camps that these fall into. There's your standalone NVR system and then your router gateway NVR system. So the standalones are really more for someone who just wants to add Ubiquiti cameras, but maybe has a different network setup at your house or small business. That's fine. This would be what you'd probably be looking at to purchase. And then one of the things I really like about Ubiquiti is they incorporate the NVR or Unifi Protect into some of their router gateways. And so basically it's as simple as turning it on the OS, adding some storage, and you're off to the races. You have a camera system. So I really like that. So let's just talk through these a little bit, and we'll kind of just take them one at a time. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons. All right, guys, so we're going to start on the left side with the Cloud Key Plus. Really nice little device here. This is meant to be a Ubiquiti controller, so it can actually run all four of Ubiquiti's applications: network application, Unifi Protect, like we're talking about now. Then there's voice, so there's their voice over IP telephone system, and then there's access, which would be door card access, how you swipe to get into a door and have a door locking mechanism. So this device can actually run all four, which is really neat about it. Another cool thing is it actually comes pre-installed with a 1 terabyte hard drive. So it already has some built-in storage right away, so you can use it right out of the box, which is nice. And $199, considering it comes with a 1 terabyte hard drive, that's pretty cool. Now, if you do want to upgrade that storage, you can. There's just a little release lever. A tray opens up, and then you can pop in a new hard drive of whatever size you like. It is a laptop hard drive, the 2.5 inch, so but it is upgradable. So if you want more than a terabyte, you can absolutely do that. This is great for just entry-level systems, but these can run up to 8 or 9 cameras pretty easily. I don't think it would even bat an eye at that. So pretty powerful little guy for $199. Now, from there, you're going to move up into the NVR at $299. Now, the big difference between the two, obviously, is there's more hard drive bays. Now, one of the advantages of having multiple drives is these systems will allow you to incorporate something called RAID. Now, RAID is it's a system in place that runs on the device that allows you to lose a hard drive, have a hard drive failure, and you can replace that drive, pop it in, and the system will rebuild itself in a way that you don't lose any data. So that's really great from a business standpoint, where data is king, you don't want to lose any of it, you want to keep all your footage. This type of system right here allows you to do that because it has RAID built into it. If you are planning on using this and you like the idea of using RAID, it is recommended to use the same size hard drive in all 4 bays. So you might have to kind of make a decision day one what size of hard drive you want to put in. However, if for some reason you chose too small, you could actually get another one of these and they're stackable. So you can actually connect 2 of them together and grow, even beyond the 4 drive bays, which is actually really neat. It's capable of 10 gigabit using an SFP plus port, and it has an Ethernet port. So all in all, really nice system. Now, one thing that's big difference also between this one and the Cloud Key is it is built as a security device. So it can only run the access application, which is the doors, and Unifi Protect. It cannot be a network controller, and it cannot do the voice over IP. Now, that's the same thing with his big brother over there, the NVR Pro. Very similar devices, very similar hardware. The big difference, obviously, is 7 drive bays versus 4. So, if you need the extra storage right out the bat, the NVR Pro is probably for you. It also has the little display there if you like using that on the devices. But all in all, they are very, very similar. Both capable of 10 gig, both have the Ethernet port, both rack mountable, both can do RAID, both are stackable, all the same stuff I just talked about. So really nice options for your standalone systems. I like it. I really do. They give you some really good options from the small setup right up to the larger ones. All right, guys, so we're going to switch over to the right side of the page and start talking about the router gateway NVR system. So this is really great for those of you who like the Ubiquiti ecosystem, and maybe you're building a house and you plan on putting a Ubiquiti network in it and you want to incorporate some cameras as well. These devices are really here to help you do that. They can run all the Ubiquiti applications, including Unifi Protect, so you really just have to add some storage, some cameras, and away you go. So let's talk through these a little bit, some of the pros and cons. All right, so you have your UDM Pro, UDM SE. Those are the prices respectively. Great devices. I have the UDM Pro at my house. I really, really like it. Basically, you just incorporate whatever kind of storage you want. You want an 8 terabyte hard drive, 16 terabyte hard drive, whatever you want. And you just pop open that door, slap the hard drive in, and you are up and running. It's that easy. So really good device. There's enough power in these systems that they can actually run quite a few cameras. And I am going to show you a little camera cheat sheet here next. So you have that at your disposal, and I'll also have a link in the description to it. So you can kind of size which device is going to work best for you based on how many cameras you think you're going to need at your property. So I'll show you that here in a second. But these are very, very powerful devices. It is a single point of failure. If your drive dies, you're going to have to replace it. You're going to lose your storage that you had in there. But for most homeowners, typically that's not a crazy big deal. I mean, it sucks, but it's not, a deal breaker. For a business, a lot of businesses like that redundancy built in. It's a little bit more important at a business standpoint. So if that's important to you, you guys can go up to the UDM Pro Max. They put some more power under the hood, so even more powerful device than the UDM Pro, UDM SE. And you have the additional hard drive bay, so you can incorporate that RAID that I was talking about earlier. So those two devices are really, really awesome. As you get down to the lower part, right, you have your UDR, which is the Unified Dream Router. Nobody really knows what the future of that is right now. Ubiquiti hasn't told us. If you do know, please leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear about it. But you can't get your hands on one right now. However, it is a nice little device, especially at that price point, right? So you got a little 4-port switch on the back. It's your router. It's your controller, very similar to the UDM Pro. It also has built-in Wi-Fi, which makes it very unique other than the Dream Wall. But it can run up to 3 of the applications, and Protect is one of those. So it has some built-in storage, and I think it has 128 gig solid-state drive built in, and you can add an SSD for some more storage. So not a bad option, but it's really going to be for small camera deployments. It's got quite a few limitations on what it can do from a hardware standpoint. Now, the Dream Wall, on the other hand, can do a lot more. It's a much more powerful device. You can see $1,000. It's also doing Wi-Fi, also your controller. Also, it has like a 16-port switch built into the top of it. I mean, this thing is really crazy. and it's neat, but it's kind of a very specific niche type of install. I've actually never installed one myself, and if you like the dream wall, I would highly recommend going out, go to Reddit, find people who've installed them, and learn from them, because I think there's some unique challenges that come with this, especially if you don't like to look at cables, just because of where ports are on it and everything. So I would definitely recommend doing that. But from a camera standpoint, it's going to be more powerful than the UDR by far, but probably less powerful than your UDM Pro, UDM SE. It's kind of more of the middle ground type of device. But it will work for Unifi Protect and will do a good job for you. So really good. It also comes with, has a 128 gig solid state drive, and I think some SD 512 solid state built into it, also upgradable. So it's going to be able to do more cameras, but still pretty limited. So let's talk about that. Let's go talk about the limitations of the cameras. All right, guys, so this is a really nice resource that Ubiquiti put together. I'll make sure to have a link in the description so you have it at your disposal. And basically why I'm showing you this is, as you start putting together your camera system and you start planning how many cameras you think you're going to want or how many you could need, and remember, there's Wi-Fi cameras too, so we're not just talking about outdoor cameras, we're talking about indoor cameras, doorbells, there's all sorts of aspects to this as well. So, when you start plugging this together, you might need to upscale your NVR to account for that. So this is a great resource to kind of get you started and talk about some of the limitations. So real quick, we'll skim through it here, but you can see the very top one there, the UDR, the limitations I was talking about. 5 HD cameras, 2 2K cameras, and 1 4K camera. So very, very limited. And then about fifth down is the UDW, that's the dream wall. You can see it is more powerful, but again, still limited on what it can do. And that's where I think the UDM Pro Max and UDM SE really shine for the home user. I mean, they're going to account for as many cameras as you would want to be able to probably run at your house. Now, if you are planning on doing all 4K cameras and you want that, reading license plates and the AI stuff, which we're going to get into later in this video, you might want the Pro Max. Again, it's going to incorporate that RAID. So it just really depends on what your needs are. But use this guide, guys, because it really will help kind of piece that together for you and paint the picture about what NVR you're going to need in your property to do your setup. All right, guys, so we're going to shift gears now and talk about cameras. Now, we're not going to be able to talk about all the cameras here. This isn't that video, or this isn't an in-depth, deep-depth dive on that. But there are a couple things I want to highlight about Ubiquiti's cameras as you kind of start piecemealing your system together. So we talked about the NVRs and some of the capacities of them. Now let's talk about some of the differences in the types of cameras. So the one thing I want to point out right away is there's basically kind of 3 tiers of camera that Ubiquiti offers. There's the HD camera, which is going to be 1080p on the resolution. Okay. There are their 2K cameras, which are 4 megapixel cameras, and then there are 4K cameras, which are 8 megapixel cameras. Okay, so you got your 3 different tiers of camera. And then inside of that, you have your different styles. You have your bullet cameras or dome cameras, or maybe you want the AI built in that actually reads the license plate numbers for you. Obviously, you have some doorbell cameras. There's even a pan tilt zoom one in here. There's some pretty expensive one, $2,500 for this AI DSLR camera, so which has different lenses and all sorts of things. The Flex, great little multi-purpose indoor-outdoor camera. So it really just kind of depends on your setup. That will really drive a lot of the decision. But as we were talking through the NVR and some of the capabilities, one of that last sheet I just told you was like it can run so many HD, so many 2Ks, and so many 4Ks. All right, so now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of which of these cameras are which, okay? So that's one thing I want to kind of highlight to you as you start piecing this together, because I know you guys are going to look at the prices, right? Anytime you're putting together a system, you're looking at the prices. So your 4K AI cameras are going to be more expensive than your 2K cameras in general. But there isn't a bad camera in the bunch. Ubiquiti has done a really good job of not putting out any bad cameras. And actually, I'm going to have a resource for you. There's a link in the description. I encourage you guys, as you get a little bit deeper in your process, don't leave now, but at some point, go watch this video. This is a guy I follow. He does a really nice deep dive, and he actually compares all of Ubiquiti's cameras, and he talks about what he likes and what he doesn't like, and he installs them all the time. He's very knowledgeable, and he actually compares them all in the same video and rates them. It's about an hour-long video, but it really is a great resource for if you're looking specifically at Unifi cameras, and he looks at all of them, which are really good, and then he talks about which ones are his favorite and why. So great resource. Don't leave now, but make sure you guys check that out, and I'll leave a link in the description for you guys because it's awesome if you're doing this. So kudos to him and his team for doing that. But every one of these, as we talk about on this channel, one of the things I want to kind of point out here, right? So if you're planning a camera system, what kind of cabling do you need, right? So each of these cameras are going to require an Ethernet cable to be pulled to their location where you're going to want it. Whether you're talking doorbell, you're talking bullet camera for the backyard, pretty much every camera on here plugs in with an Ethernet port except for your Wi-Fi cameras. There's a couple Wi-Fi cameras in here that just need power and they connect to the Wi-Fi. There's no cable. So if you're building, one of the things we really strongly recommend on this channel is pull the wires ahead of time. Even if you don't plan on putting in cameras day one, it's important to have the cables there, or at least a pathway to be able to add cables, right? We've talked about that in other videos too, where you run Smurf tubing maybe from your head end to your attic, which allows you to add those cameras or add those cables later. That's what I did at my house, so no shame in that. I recommend give yourself the ability to run these wires because it's a lot more expensive after the fact. But each one of these cameras are going to require a single Ethernet cable to be able to power them and turn them on and communicate on the network. So that's what you're going to be doing from a network cabling standpoint. And then it's really just choosing which camera is going to work best for you. And there's just so many great options here. Large ones, small ones. The new G5 Ultra Dome here and the G5 Turret Ultra, I think it's called. They're the size of a tennis ball. So this guy right here, I think if you go down, there's a graphic down here, you can see it sitting right next to a tennis ball. So small cameras, big cameras, there's a lot of really neat options. So check this out. Go watch that other video after you get done watching this video, and when you start getting into details so you guys can pick out your favorite cameras that's going to work best in your home. All right, guys, so I want to talk now a little bit about PoE, Power over Ethernet. So in the last segment, I talked about for each one of these cameras, you're going to need to run an Ethernet wire from wherever your network head end is to the camera location so you can bring this thing online. And the way you bring it online is using something called PoE. So the cable itself provides both the power and the connectivity to the switch so it can come online. And so you guys are going to need a PoE switch of some kind to get your camera system online. Now, I say of some kind. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of Ubiquiti and their system, but you do not need a Ubiquiti PoE switch to run your cameras. And so we talked about in the beginning, there's the standalone systems. Maybe you have your own network system at your home and you like the idea of using Ubiquiti cameras. Great. You will need just a PoE switch of some kind to do that. It plugs into your network, and then now you have so many ports of PoE and you plug your camera cables into those, and that's how your cameras will get online. So it's important to understand when you're putting together the system and thinking about getting cameras that you're going to need a PoE switch of some kind. Now, most of the cameras that are listed here are standard PoE. There are a few, as you start getting into the higher end ones, that are PoE plus, and that $1,800 pan tilt zoom one is actually a PoE plus. It uses a ton of power, so very specific. So one thing you'll want to do was you're shopping for cameras, and let's say you find the ones that you want to use. Maybe you're going to use the smaller Ultra series or whatever. Look at the power rating. They are going to be standard PoE, and make sure that your switch matches. You just need a gigabit switch. All these cameras all are gigabit cameras, so you don't need anything crazy. And you can go buy like a 12 port, a 16 port Netgear PoE plus switch, gigabit switch, for like 89 bucks. I mean, you really don't need to spend a ton of money on this. So now, of course, I'm prone to Ubiquiti. I like their switches. I like to be able to get into a switch that's manageable, and you can reboot that camera. Let's say the camera goes offline, you don't know why, you can log into the switch. You can actually power cycle the port remotely from your phone even, and that it'll turn off the power in that port and turn it back on and essentially reboot that camera for you without you having to get a ladder out and all that other stuff. If you had the Netgear switch I'm talking about, you can do the same thing. You just have to physically unplug the cable and plug it back in. So you have to know where each of your cameras is plugged into. But very doable. And so it just really depends on your setup, your budget, and whatever. If you guys like the Ubiquiti ecosystem and you're putting together a holistic system and maybe you're going to use one of the router UDM options for your NVR, then you definitely are going to want a Unifi POE switch to run your cameras. Okay, and we'll get more into that here as I tell you what I would do at the end of this video. Okay guys, so the last thing I want to talk about real quick before I get to my recommendations is data retention. Now if you recall from earlier in the video, data retention really just means how far back into your recordings do you want to be able to go? 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, whatever. And so I want you to be thinking about what is important to you. Do you want to be able to go back 5 days, or do you need to just go back a couple hours, right? So everybody's a little bit different in this. And there's a lot of factors that will play into your data retention. For example, the amount of storage you have. You can hold a lot more storage in an 8 terabyte hard drive or 4 8 terabyte hard drives than you can the single terabyte hard drive that comes in the CloudKey Plus. So storage is going to be a factor. The quality of camera that you decide to buy. If you have all 4K 8 megapixel cameras recording, obviously that's going to take up more storage because the camera quality and the resolution is greater, so the file sizes are bigger. And so that's going to play into your data retention too. So that is something else you're going to want to kind of keep in mind. And then the last thing is are you going to have your cameras record all the time, or are you going to have them just record when they detect motion? So for example, in my house on my driveway camera, I block out my sidewalk because I don't need it kicking on when someone drives by on the street or is walking their dog. I don't need to know about that. So I actually have motion zones, so you actually have to come onto my property before the camera will start recording you, which means it's not recording all the time, which means I can typically go back a lot further in time because it's just doing little clips here and there. So, that's an option for you guys too. Now, Ubiquiti gives you a really nice tool to sort of help calculate this. I think it plays it a little safe, but I wanted to show it to you so you had it at your disposal so you guys can play around with it too. So let's go check it out. All right, guys, so let's take a look at this tool here. So to get there, you go to cameras. I'm on the store. You go to camera security. You can just pick one of the NVRs. So we'll just pick the video recorder here. And as you scroll down, there is a capacity calculator. So this is kind of nice. You can see it gives you all the NVR options that we talked about on the first slide. And then it basically says, all right, well, what are you going to be doing on this thing? So like I talked about earlier, the Unifi NVR and NVR Pro can only run Protect and can run Access. So as you start saying, well, I'm going to have it run 20 different doors and so many HD cameras, it's going to talk about how many days of retention or what size of hard drive you're going to need to be able to do that. And then it's also going to show you the resources on board of the device too, so you know if you're maxing out the device. And where that's really going to come to play is these simpler devices, maybe your CloudKey or your UDR, these entry-level systems. You probably won't run into that too much unless you're running a crazy big system with your UDM Pro or UDM SE. So let's go click over there. I'm just going to click around in here and just kind of give you an example, and then you guys can come in here and do it, work at your leisure. So let's just look at my setup right here. So I got the UDM Pro, and I'm running both the Protect and the network. I have 5 access points. I'm not doing any VPN, but I'm doing security detection, ad blocking, and QoS. All right, so you can see as I add those things, camera, it starts going in there, or it starts filling up my resources. And then I have 5 HD cameras. Actually, I have 4 HD cameras and 1 4K camera. Okay, and I have a 1 terabyte hard drive. All right, so if I had these things recording all the time, I could go back 4 days. I'm assuming that this is taking into account recording all the time. I don't think it could calculate this if it was only on motion. So my assumption is that this means I can go back 4 days with a 1 terabyte hard drive. If I go to 8, I can go back 37 days. And you can see my compute resources aren't a big deal. I can add some additional cameras, and I'm not going to have any problems running that device. And so this is a really nice tool they give you. Like I say, I think it does play fairly safe, but it really is a nice little resource for you guys to be able to use if you're looking at planning a camera system for your home. All right, guys, I hope you found this video helpful as you start piecing together your camera. As you can see, we didn't get too granular and in the weeds on this one. It was really just high level things to be thinking about. And then as you start getting more detailed, like what product am I going to buy, then you can really take that deep dive and go into it. And I encourage you to check out that link I'm leaving in the description. Now, before we go, I did promise you that I would tell you what my recommendation would be if I was putting together a system today. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is just my opinion, guys. There's no right or wrong to this. This is just what I would personally do. And it's going to be really geared toward the home, not really small business, because most of the people I help were doing this for their homes. So this is the system I would design. I hope it helps you out. So from an NVR standpoint, I would go with the UDM SE. And here's why. I love it because it's got plenty of horsepower. It'll do 10 gig. I like the fact that it's doing all the different things. It's being my controller, my gateway, my security. It can handle all that, no problem. I can put in an 8 terabyte hard drive and get plenty of recording. I don't really care about the redundancy and the RAID aspect for my home. If I was a business, yeah, maybe I would care. But the thing that really makes the SE stand out to me is the fact that the ports are POE. So you could plug all of your cameras right into your SE, and that frees up all those ports on whatever switch you choose in your home. And I really love that. Of all the gadgets or NVRs out there, the SE is the one that has the POE ports. Even the Pro Max doesn't. So I would probably lean towards the SE. Now for my switch, I'm going to list a couple options here. For me personally, I'd kind of stick on that 10 gig train. So I like the Pro Max series of switches that they have. They're capable of 10 gig. There's plenty of power and horsepower for them to be able to run your cameras on top of your APs and whatever other devices you're doing. However, they can get a little bit pricey. If you're really just looking for a simple switch that you can buy at an affordable rate and run your cameras off of it, look at the Switch Ultra series. There's an 8-port Ultra switch, and it's going to give you a couple different power options. It comes with a 60-watt power supply, so if you're only running cameras, that would work just fine for you. But if you want a little bit more power, there's also a 210-watt power supply that you can plug into it, and that even gives you more power on the switch to be able to run it. But generally, the cameras don't require a ton of power, so I would get that Ultra switch with the 60-watt power, and I think you're going to be at $159, something like that. Very affordable, and is going to be no problem running your cameras. As we talk about cameras, I think I like the idea of having a G4 Pro or G5 Pro, maybe even the AI camera on my driveway. I like that single 4K camera. I have a G4 Pro today, and I really like having that nicer, clearer picture in the front of my house just as things are going by. But then again, I only record on motion, so it's not really dipping into my storage as bad. And then I would go 2K cameras everywhere else, right? And then a G4 doorbell. I love the doorbells. Mine broke, and so I'm currently using a Ring, but I got to get another one and get it installed because I miss it. But I'd use a G4 doorbell. I think they're really nice. But I would do 2K, probably the G5 Turret Ultras cameras. I like the small form factor. Their picture quality is really amazing. Great daytime and nighttime cameras, completely waterproof. I mean, at $129 a piece, you just can't go wrong. Matter of fact, they're very popular. They're hard to catch in stock, but they do come in stock, and then within a day they're sold out again. So very popular. So I'd use UDM SE, one of the two switches. I like the Pro Max series of switch. I just think it's really awesome. They even have a 16-port Pro Max, which is really affordable. I think it's $399. So I like those Pro Max switches. But if you needed just a smaller setup, that 8-port Ultra switch with the 60-watt power supply, great option. I'll have links for all this in the description. And then I would just do maybe a 4K camera in my driveway. That's a personal preference. And then 2K cameras everywhere else plus the doorbell. So that's my setup that I would build. I hope it helps you. Again, it's just getting you started. These are just my opinions. By all means, leave comments. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm all about it. I don't really care. It's fun for me to listen to you guys, and I learn from you as much as you learn from me. So thank you for tuning in. Have a great evening, and I hope to see you down the road at a future video.